Anti-Zulu activists BTFO'd. Petition in favour of screening Zulu film gets 12,000 votes. And how did they vote? 92% in favour of showing the film. According to the organisers, they are standing by their decision to screen the beloved 1964 classic. As well they should. And they've got good reasons to do so, and they're reasons that are just based in common sense. While the film has caused some discussion in recent times, it's important not to gloss over parts of our history that make us feel uncomfortable. It doesn't make me feel uncomfortable, but I agree with him. Rather than censoring the subject, a viewing could form a basis for the discussion about deeper themes in the film. It's a good idea. You know, I think that's a really good idea, and I think that's the whole point. I mean, censorship is the thing that I'm objecting to. I mean, this film isn't even really very controversial in my opinion. So I mean, it must be through far-left ideology that they've managed to come to the conclusion that literally, oh, it's a black man being portrayed on the big screen, and there's a white man there, and the black man has a spear and the white man has a gun. Oh, well, I guess history is just racist then. And I guess we can't talk about it. I guess we can't make movies about it. Even-handed movies at that. I mean, are we literally just going to say, right, okay, so there's a period of time between about 1500 and about 1900 that we just can't make films about. We're really sorry. I mean, you know, maybe we can make films that are solely set in Europe, but they're going to have some black people in them. We can't have any films set in Africa with white people in, because that's going to be racist. I mean, like, you know that like every historical film ever has been worse than racist, though. Like, most of them portray like horrific genocides, massacres, rape and torture and murder and all this sort of stuff, and it's like, yeah, but this one's racist. Okay. You know there are men dying in this film. Like, that's the end of their lives, the characters at least. But it's racist. I mean, how weird is it that you consider racism to be worse than like actual harm? That's what I find baffling. When I was doing my talk at Sussex University in Brighton, don't know why it's there. For some reason, like this SJW was like, "But aren't you worried about racism?" And I was like, "Well, no, not really, because I mean we've got laws that guard against it, and at the end of the day, it's just words." But she was equating racism directly with genocide. I'm just like, there are loads of racist people and have been racist nations that haven't committed genocides. I mean, like racism is bad, but it's not the worst thing that can happen. I know that sounds like heresy to a progressive, but it's really true. Like, demonstrable harm that's done to someone. Racism is nasty. It's emotional harm. You know, it's a nasty thing to do. It's a horrible way to run a civilization. But it's not the same as murdering someone, or shooting them, or raping them, or something like that. It's not on the same scale. You know, I'm against racism. I come from a mixed race family. My dad, in the 60s and 70s, growing up in, I don't know, Yeovil or something, he was on the receiving end of racism. He's a mixed race kid in a fucking white area. You know, he knows what it's like to have people be racist to you. I grew up hearing stories about this. I'm not in favour of racism, but it's just not as bad as people being murdered or whatever. You know, it's crazy that this is like the worst thing that's ever, like, to the progressives, that it's the worst thing that could ever happen is racism. It's like, no, it's really not. It's just bigotry. You know, prejudice and bigotry. They're not nice. They're bad things. But I mean, you know, it's not in and of itself the worst thing that can happen. Despite detractors claiming the film is racist, there are only 3 slight racial epithets used in the entire film, and one is directed against the Irish, so it doesn't count. I'm sorry, my Irish friends, I'm really sorry. Don't punch me when I come back over for a visit. While the third was a soldier being called a dozy Welshman because he forgot his rifle. I don't think you can call British banter racist. I mean, they're not really different races, are they? They're more different ethnicities. And even then, is that even a derogatory term? Do you consider being called a Welshman to be derogatory? Should I consider being called an Englishman to be derogatory? Or an Irishman? I don't think they are. You know, I think they're more a statement of culture and values and, like, just identity. I don't think it's racist to call someone a Welshman. Even a dozy one. You know? He's not saying all Welshmen are dozy. Just... How fucking hypersensitive is everyone these days? The classic movie portrays the Zulu warriors as honourable combatants, whose overwhelming numbers are only narrowly defeated by the indefatigable British Empire forces. Local man said, I can't take that seriously. I know, I'm not mocking the guys. The term local, anyway, my great-grandmother's brother was a soldier in the 124th Warwickshire Regiment and was killed at Isandlwana, however it was pronounced. So, have I an inherited hatred of Zulus? Quite the opposite. Magnificent and brave so they were. And it's weird, because if you think about it, I can't really think of anyone, I guess I would call it British lore, sort of colloquial attitudes towards the Empire and the people that we fought against. I'm really struggling to think of someone that the British didn't have respect for that isn't French. And the thing is, I'm saying this as someone who grew up in a military family, so I'm on military bases, and the history of the Empire is something that I guess is kind of seeped and permeated into the environment. There are Gurkhas on the camps and stuff like that, so you have to understand what a Gurkha is. For anyone who doesn't know, a Gurkha is a Nepalese soldier who fought for the British Empire, and now they fight for Britain. And a few years ago, Joanna Lumley held a campaign to try and get Gurkha citizenship automatically for their service to Britain, which I support, because they've served our country. And these people are always treated with tremendous respect. Same with the Sikhs, same with the Indians, and same with any of the soldiers. Anyone who fought for us was always treated with great respect. And then you have the noble enemies. This is the thing. Zulu was a film made in the tradition of the sort of honourable and the valiant enemy that we had to fight. Because, and I'm not saying this is because we're such great people or anything, don't get me wrong, I think it is to a high moral character to do this, but it's also to your own advantage, because if your enemies are heroic and fearsome wherever you go, and you defeat them, then you must have been better than them at whatever it is you were doing, and so it makes you look kind, gentlemanly, and like a badass. Oh, fucking fly. At the same time. And, that's good to do to yourself. So I'm not saying there's no self-interest there. But it's really one of those things that's I don't know. There probably were officers and soldiers who thought really negatively of these people when they were in the heat of it. But that's not, from what I experienced growing up, the sort of the legacy of the Empire. It seems that there's a great deal of respect for people who fought valiantly against our forces, and I think this local man is actually demonstrating that, in fact. And I'm sure you can find a diary entry from someone in India who just hated the Indians. I've got no doubt. But in modern times, it's all been quite romanticised in quite a positive way, in a remarkably anti-racist way, in fact, now I think about it. And I think that goes to show you just how pathologically anti-racist the British are. And again, I think that is to their credit, but it can indeed be taken advantage of, as we see by progressive activists. But anyway, I'm just kind of rambling about this, because there's really not a huge amount to say about the fact that they're putting it back on.